Hey boys and girls, it's Chris Eads, known online as Wootini, here with another Gay Gamer video podcast. To start off, I just wanted to mention that I finally had a chance to see The Great Wall. I couldn't make it last weekend, and I'm glad I made it this weekend because it was literally me and two other people in the theater, so I don't think it's going to be in theaters for very much longer. Of course, that was a 3D showing and a matinee at like 11 o'clock in the morning, so I did it so I could get a cheaper price, but maybe later showings were more full. But yeah, it's probably not going to be around much longer. Anyway, I just want to say I thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, it has a few problems here and there, but like the final battle isn't as good as previous battle sequences in the movie. And Matt Damon clearly went to the Kevin Costner school of accents. But overall, it was just what I wanted. Like, I wanted an over-the-top action spectacle, and that's what I got. The set design and costuming are incredible. Love the color-coded armor. And I feel like they tried to avoid the white savior trope to a certain extent, because the three white people are basically villains. Except for Matt Damon's character, who is, you know, a mercenary and has to be taught to not be such a dick. So, you know, that's okay. But the action was incredible, and the 3D was terrific. Even though it's a conversion, it was clearly shot to be in 3D, like Mad Max Fury Road. You know, if I was watching this in 2D, I'd be like, oh, this would look so good in 3D. But thankfully, my husband didn't want to see it, so I could go in 3D. And it was great. I was flinching from weapons and attacks and monsters, and it was great. So if you're looking for an over-the-top action spectacle, The Great Wall might fit the bill. Also, as promised, over the past week, I did try Resident Evil 7 in VR. And it's funny because I only played it for a little while. I don't know, like maybe 20 minutes or something. I just did like a little section where like I went on a little thing and I went and found this key, and then I went and opened this, and then I did this, and then I went back and saved, and I'm like, okay. And I killed some monsters along the way. I feel like it's a little scarier in VR, but the controls keep pulling me out of it. So while you're in the game and it's in VR, in 3D, and it's very immersive, the movement controls kind of pull me out, because while you can move forward, back, left, and right, the right stick, instead of looking around like in the first-person shooter version on your television, it basically turns you incrementally 30 degrees to the left and right. So if you need to like move and turn physically, you have to flick the right stick to turn in those little increments, and as you turn you can look around and stuff. And I don't know if that's like a technical limitation of VR where you can't have smooth movement left and right, you know, and it has to be in those little increments. But that, like, it's very immersive, and you're looking around, and it's all very real, but then when you have to turn, and you go, and then you can go through the door, it just sort of pulls me out of the immersion, you know? Plus, it freaked me out because in VR, it's really claustrophobic. Like, everything, the rooms are so much smaller in VR. Like, I started in the save room where I had left off, and I'm like looking around, and I was like, oh my god, like, everything, it's like right here, and this is right here, and it's like, oh my god, like, it's really small. And I know that part of that is because in the regular version on the TV it's over there, but I just feel like it didn't feel like visually on the television, it felt like there was more space and the walls were further apart. Whereas in VR, everything is a little claustrophobic, and that actually freaked me out more than the monsters busting through walls and jumping at my face. So, I don't think I'm going to play the rest of the game in VR, just because the controls are kind of wonky, and I'm not crazy about them. I mean, I feel like later I might go back and play the beginning of the game in VR, because there was some stuff in the beginning that would be like some attacks that would have been really cool to have in like 3D VR, but I think I'm going to play the rest of the game on the TV. And I do need to finish this game because there are games coming that I'm going to want to play, and then that means that Resident Evil 7 will never get finished. Like, I don't mind that, like, No Man's Sky is still sitting there, because I do go back to No Man's Sky at least once or twice a week, just because if I've had a stressful day at work, it's nice to come home and just go, you know. But, I mean, it's taking forever to get to the center of the universe, so, like, you know, that's, like, an ongoing thing that I'll just keep going back to. But Horizon Zero Dawn comes out in a couple of days, and normally I would be like, ugh, like, because I've been excited for that. It sounds really good, and it looks really good, and I'm like, oh, and I'm hearing great things in the reviews about it. So I would like to play that. However, I'm not done with Resident Evil 7. So normally I would wait until, okay, I'll make myself finish Resident Evil 7, or at least get to the point in the game where it's too hard and I can't finish it. Then I'll be like, forget it, I'll just go and start Horizon Zero Dawn now. But the problem is that Horizon Zero Dawn comes out on February 28th, and then literally 3 days later, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild comes out. Priorities. So, basically Horizon Zero Dawn, I had been excited to play it. It's gonna wait. It's gonna wait months, because Zelda takes priority. And in theory, my next episode is going to be all about the Nintendo Switch, because I should have one. Because now I actually have 2 pre-orders. You might recall the episode where I mentioned that after watching the presentation, I checked Best Buy and they weren't doing pre-orders yet, and I thought, well, they'll probably start them tomorrow morning when the store opens or something. It turns out I could have just waited a half an hour and everything would have been fine, because they would have started taking pre-orders and I could have gotten in. But Best Buy was sold out of pre-orders. So I managed to get one through Target, but I had to pay $15 for same-day shipping, which is annoying. But then, the other week, a friend of mine, I think on Twitter, maybe it was Facebook, I think it was Twitter, was like, hey you guys, Best Buy has pre-orders for the Switch again. And so I was like, let me see. And I went, and I looked, and sure enough, you could pre-order a Switch, not for store pickup, which would obviously be ideal, but they would deliver it to you, and I could get release day delivery for free from Best Buy. So I was like, well, that's better. So I ordered that, but then I'm like, do I cancel the Target order? And somebody was like, don't cancel the Target order, because Best Buy, sometimes they'll cancel pre-orders, so you might be screwed. So basically, I've kept both pre-orders, and while the worst possible outcome would be they both cancel and nobody shows up, or they both say, sorry, we don't have stock, you'll get it in like a couple of weeks when we get more in. I think actually the more annoying, like that's worst case scenario, is that I don't get a Switch, because both of them screw up. But I think more likely, they're both going to show up. Like, the post office is going to come, and he's going to ring the bell, and I'm going to go downstairs and get these 2 big boxes, one from Best Buy and one from Target, and he's like, here you go. And then I'm going to have to go to Target to return that one, because I'll return the one and get the shipping. You know, I'll keep the one with the free shipping, save $15, and I'll have to go to Target and return the other one. Which is just like, because that's like annoying, you know. But it's not as bad as not getting anything. But usually the annoying thing is what will happen to me. Ideally, Target would screw up the order, but the Best Buy one would arrive. I would also accept if Best Buy like canceled my pre-order and the Target one arrived, and I'd be like, alright, fine, whatever. And I just won't get the reward points and the free shipping and whatever. But as long as I get one, that's what matters. Also, I attempted to go to Nintendo New York to try playing the Zelda Demo on their giant big screen, but unfortunately, I went and I was like, oh, there's only like a handful of people in line, that'll be fine. But then the rope went like this and then like that, and I asked the last guy, I was like, did they cap the line? And he's like, oh yeah. And it turns out it's a 15-minute demo. So the guy in front of him was like, oh yeah, I was going to play at 8:30, but now some guy left, so now I'm getting to play at 8:15 or something. And I'm just like, oh my god, like, that's insane. Like, I appreciate that they're letting you really play the game for, like, you know, it's not just, okay, here's a few minutes of run around, kill something, okay, now hand it to the next guy, and you just get, like, a little taste. You actually get to play it for 15 minutes, which is, like, decent, and you get a good flavor of it, but it means that standing in line, like, if there's 4 people ahead of you in line, you're going to wait an hour. I'm like, they should give wristbands for that so you can, like, leave and come back, because, like, that poor guy was going to be standing there for an hour and a half before he even got to play the game. Like, that's just not cool. Like, oh, I have to pee, you know? Like, that's not cool. So, yeah, so I did not get to sample Zelda. I was basically like, psh, no. Because the only way that I would be able to do it is if I went and there was literally just one person standing in line. And then I'm like, okay, I'll wait for, like, you know, probably 15 to 20 minutes, less than a half an hour, I can do that. But there's always going to be, like, 4 or 5 people in line, so you're going to end up waiting over an hour, and I'm just like, that's not happening. So I was like, forget it, I'll just go home, and I'll hopefully be playing it next Friday. Whatever. Because I am a little concerned. I was concerned when they announced that the weapons, I think the armor too, they take damage and are degradable and will break. And I'm just like, oh. Because, honestly, breakable weapons are like, I don't know, they might actually be my biggest pet peeve. They're like on par with escort missions for me. It's just like, ugh. But I feel like they might actually be my biggest pet peeve, and they might actually beat out escort missions, because escort missions happen like maybe once or twice in a game, and you just have to get through it. Unless, of course, it's an entire game of escort missions, you know, which is why I wasn't crazy about Ico, because you're just dragging this little girl around, and it just becomes an ordeal. But, like, breakable weapons are ongoing through the whole thing. Unless there is one, unless, like, when you get the Master Sword doesn't break, so then you're like, finally, I have a weapon I can use, and I don't have to worry about, like, repairing it, or finding a new one, or whatever, so that's sort of a way, I'm like, ugh. I've also heard that, I mean, like, looking at somebody playing it, they were trying to kill this big rock monster, and, like, they'd climb up it, they'd hit it, and then they'd get knocked off, and they only had, like, 3 hearts, and they died, and I was just like, this looks really hard. And from what I've been reading about it, it is really hard. So I'm a little concerned that, as excited as I am to play Breath of the Wild, I'm hoping that the initial difficulty levels don't spike too high too quickly, because otherwise I'm going to get super frustrated, and then I'm not going to want to play it anymore. And that's going to be really depressing, because I am super excited to play it. So if it ends up being really frustratingly hard, I'm going to be like, ugh. But, also, that, I mean, if I give up on it, then that will justify my being able to buy Mass Effect Andromeda, which comes out at the end of March. I don't know why everything's coming out in March. It's like, oh my god. I've been waiting, and you've got Horizon Zero Dawn, Breath of the Wild, and Mass Effect Andromeda. Like, all in the space of a month. And I'm like, what are you doing to me? That's not cool. Like, I don't have time to play all these games. So I'm just sort of like, ugh. But I feel like with Horizon Zero Dawn, it's like a new thing, so I'm like, that can wait. But with Mass Effect Andromeda, I'm like, I really want to play the new Mass Effect. So we'll see if at the end of March I can somehow justify in my mind, oh, I'll keep playing Zelda, and I'll just play that more portably, and then when I'm home, I'll play Mass Effect Andromeda on the PlayStation. Because this one I'll get for the PlayStation. The original Mass Effect trilogy I played on my 360, but since there's no crossover, like, it's not like the same story where it's not like they're gonna pull your game from the original Mass Effect and have it affect the new one. It's a fresh start, so it's fine. I don't need that. Because with the Mass Effect trilogy, I had to play them all on the same system, because it would reload your previous save, and then you could continue your character. But, like, I want to play Mass Effect, but I know I'm not going to be done with Zelda. Even a regular Zelda game I wouldn't finish in a month. But this one's all open world and shit, and I'm not gonna be able to... I probably have only barely made a dent in it, even with being able to play it portably wherever I am. So I think Mass Effect might have to wait, but we'll see if I can justify purchasing it in my own brain, and then whatever. Because also I feel like with that, it's like Mass Effect... The Mass Effect games, I'm assuming it'll be like the original trilogy, where it's a relatively linear story, and it's not like super long. It's not a completely open world where you can just waste time. There's side missions, but it does propel you along the story. That's what I love about the Mass Effect games, is that there are side quests and things to do, but they move you through the game so that you can finish it in a reasonable amount of time, and not feel overwhelmed by the size of the universe and all the side quests. So fingers crossed that the new one will also be like that, and then I can finish it. And I'll probably end up finishing that before I ever finish Zelda, which is sad. But what I need to do is just be like, play more games. Stop doing other things. Play more games. Finish games. Definitely finish games. So that's all for this week. Come back next week, and hopefully I will have a brand new Switch to be playing with that I can tell you all about. See you then. Bye.